We are now recording.
Sweet.
Welcome to the first episode of Friends in Cars with Cole Pill.
That's me.
Yeah, that's him. What are we talking about?
I was thinking, probably should stay away from Star Wars because that's too obvious for me.
Okay.
Maybe go Star Wars adjacent.
All right.
Like other sci-fi.
Sounds good.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking, but we'll see.
Okay.
But we'll start with Star Wars because it's going to tangent. First Star Wars books it all started with Heir to the Empire, 1991, same year I was born, Timothy Zahn. And then from there, I tangented into reading just, all Timothy Zahn stuff, because I think he's a really good writer.
What do you like about him?
He does really interesting sci-fi concepts. I mean, I'm sure that's just, sci-fi in general, but he'll take an idea and explore it in a cool way and gives us good characters. I mean, let's see. One of my favorite series he did was the Quad Rail book series. Ended up being 4 of them, or 5 of them, ironically. It's the future, and turns out the galaxy is connected by an intergalactic train system.
That is an interesting concept.
Yeah, that hyperspace travel isn't possible except for this train system, and it's controlled very strictly by this enigmatic group of aliens, and that's how they can prevent interstellar war, is by having, hey, you can only travel on this train station. It's just like a regular, train that you'd expect. And it's like, well, you can't bring anything on, you can't bring weapons on it unless they're regulated. They have to be monitored, they have to be controlled. So you can't have interstellar conflicts because you can't move spaceships around big, That's how they control things. It's and it, at least that's part of the, whole story of the whole thing is that maybe there's more to all that going on, but for the most part, they seem totally benevolent. And they're literally just trying to prevent war from happening ever. It's that's an interesting idea.
If they turned bad, huh?
Yeah, that would be really, really bad.
Universe destroying.
Yeah, for sure. But the whole story is structured and presented like an old school detective noir train thriller, following this human detective guy who's trying to solve a mystery that gets pulled into a bigger mystery, spanning the whole series and various conspiracies. It's a fun time.
Sounds fun.
I think that book series is first person too, which I tend to enjoy.
Yeah.
As long as you like the character
That's
that
true.
you're in the head of. Let's see. Another thing that he's done really well, he's done some interesting time travel stories. Probably my favorite one he's done. It was a short story called Time Bomb, wherein mathematician, I think he's just a mathematician, discovers the equation that makes time travel possible. And the very knowledge of this equation, of the way to make a time machine, means things around him start falling apart.
Okay.
Where just the idea, in the way he explains it, and then it's just, this one guy's interpretation of why it's all happening is that, the fact that I could make a time machine means that somebody could go back and change something to make something not exist.
Right.
So somebody around me is man, I really hate smoking. Smoking is a terrible thing. So cigarettes just disintegrate, within this guy's presence, pretty much.
That's cool.
But it happens that, can happen to anything, and it's just people being around him increase the probability because that's how time travel works in this particular instance.
Yeah. It's a very cool concept.
It's a very interesting idea. And so he's on the run trying to prevent things from happening, and the whole story like culminates with him realizing that he can make a time machine. He just has to make it where he can't go backwards. And it fixes the paradox. Because otherwise, they literally, they're trying to build one, and they can't build it because it's just falling apart because they can't make the materials work. Because everything just falls apart. Just everything is falling apart all the time. It's like, this is really interesting, fascinating concept.
Yeah, it sounds really fascinating. How many books has he written?
I don't know how many he's actually written. He's done, I think it's 10 or 12 Star Wars novels, and then probably 30 or 40 original novels, a few other tie-in stuff, a bunch of short stories. I have several short story collections of his that's where that Time Bomb is from.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like it would be a good short story concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I think it's just the perfect length for you don't actually have to get into too much of it. And it just drops you in with him on the run, and you slowly figure out all the stuff surrounding it.
Yeah. Interesting.
There's even one short story that he did. I don't remember the name of it right now. Where he kind of tackled the idea of when does life begin? Almost. In the end, it doesn't really end up saying anything about it, but it's throughout the whole thing, you're like, is it really saying this, or is it not? It's okay, lay it out for you. I think it's just the present day, more or less, but there's this one guy who's actually an empath. If he touches somebody, he can read their mind, kind of empathically, and it's been scientifically proven. As much as something like that could be scientifically proven, this guy's legit, and everyone just kind of accepts it. And so somebody asks him, hey, why don't we test to see when a baby's mind is there? He's sure, he's not even thinking anything of it, and then it blows up into this huge media thing, because that's of course what would happen in the modern world. And I don't remember when it was written either, so I don't remember if it was relatively recent or if it was back in the late 90s, early 2000s or something. But anyway, it becomes this huge thing with multiple test subjects and everything, and then in the end, he determines that even the earliest stage development is alive, and that ends up changing the whole world's perspective on abortion, and that's what happens in the story. But then in the end, you find out that as he was doing this, he was also because his mind was so much more developed than all these babies' minds, he was overriding their brains, and they all essentially became copies of him, essentially.
Okay.
And it's super dark.
It is.
The further along they were, the less it happened. But the youngest one was making making all the same decisions that he made. It's whoa.
Yeah.
So in the end, it's it doesn't really come down on either side of the issue. But it's wow, I was not expecting, this is not what I was expecting when I was reading this, collection of short stories that were, mostly not that serious.
Right.
Have you ever read any short stories like that?
No, I haven't. Do you think any of his stuff should be adapted to a movie? Or an episode of The Twilight Zone, since that's coming back?
Yeah, there's some of them that definitely would suit Twilight Zone. I think that the Quad Rail series could make a really good, either movie series or Netflix series or something. I think that could be really good. But there's actually the movie. Oh dang it! What's the name of it? Source Code. Have you seen Source Code?
I haven't.
And after I watched that, I was like, this is like not exactly the same, but it's really, really similar to one of his short stories. Like the idea of it. In Source Code, Jake Gyllenhaal was in like a helicopter crash, like plugged into this weird computer system that would let him like go back in time and like relive the past like week or so of like a certain individual, and they were like trying to use this to like reconstruct this crime. I think it was like a terrorist bombing on a train or something. Okay. I haven't seen it in a while, but it would send it back, and he would like relive these like few minutes, and then the bomb would explode, and he would come back, he would wake back up, and they'd send it back again. And he was like trying to, every time he would do something different, like trying to figure out what was going on. And it was very similar to a short story he did called Banshee, where it was something kind of similar, where they had these people they could send back like, I think it was just like 48 hours, and they would essentially like go back in time as like specters, and they could observe everything from like 3 dimensions, essentially, and like that's how they would solve like major crimes and stuff. But in the short story, it's like this is a thing that's been going on for a long time, and then I think Air Force One goes down, and because of this thing's existence, even though to the point in history that the story takes place, they've never been able to like change the past, and they've like never really even tried. Like I think the president's like, I don't know if it was the first, like the one of his like lesser guys was trying to like save the president, but Air Force One crashed, but they had no confirmation that the president was dead.
Okay.
So they send this guy in just like they normally do to like try to figure out what was going on, but they also want him to try to get the president to escape in such a way that it doesn't contradict all the information that they already have, so that it doesn't create a time paradox, right?
Okay.
It's like you know, movies. It was like in Harry Potter and Prisoner of Azkaban when they do the time loop thing.
Right.
Like they're not creating a paradox, but they're like all these little things that kind of are weird in the first half of the movie make sense in the second half because you see all the stuff. They're trying to prevent anything weird from happening. It's like, okay, you need to jump out of the plane before the bomb goes off, and then you need to like hide in the woods so that the rescuers don't find you until the present, because otherwise that'll be a problem.
Right.
And it ends up working because that's how sci-fi stories work.
Right.
But yeah, it's like, oh, well, that's interesting. But it was very similar to what happened in Source Code. I was like, man, I wonder if any of these guys read that one Timothy Zahn short story back in like the 90s when that came out. Those are the other interesting short stories. It's been a while since I've read any of them. Oh, not short stories, but another one of his like novel series is like pretty classic, like aliens invade, humans against them, whatever. This is the Conqueror's trilogy, is what it's known as. And the first book is all like the humans discovering, like already having space flight, and I think they already know a bunch of alien species and stuff, but then random new aliens show up, and we try to talk to them, and they immediately attack us. It's like, oh, classic alien tropes.
Definitely.
And then the second book takes us into the aliens' perspective, and we find out that not nearly as cut and dry as it was. Then the last book is like bouncing back and forth, discovering everything.
Are most of his books a part of a series?
I won't say most of them. Probably like half.
Yeah.
Probably. Then his very short story collections. I don't even know where most of them end up like published originally. And some of them get put up just like novel-sized compilations with like, you know, random numbers of them, depending on how long they are, obviously.
Right.
Then his Star Wars stuff, he's still publishing Star Wars stuff, which is...
Yeah, that's probably never going to stop.
No, I hope not. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Is he your favorite Star Wars book writer?
Probably just because, like, there may be, like, individual books from other authors I like better than some of his, but I think he's definitely written the most.
Yeah.
And that are, like, super consistent. Like Matthew Stover has written just a couple of absolute masterpieces. But he's only written, like, 4 total, I think. And then Zahn's written, like, 10 or 12 and is still writing more, so...
Yeah.
Mr. Stover would get back to writing.
He's not writing anything? No.
Last thing I saw from him, he wasn't. I think the last thing he published was, like... 2014, maybe? I know I follow him on Twitter and Facebook, and I want to say, like, maybe 6 months ago, he posted something, and I was like, oh, is he back up and running? And then it went quiet again, and so I don't know.
Bummer.
Because I'd really like to see him continue on with his Kane books. I let you borrow those, didn't I?
You did, yeah. They were really good. Very, dark.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I read his Star Wars stuff, and usually what happens is I read Star Wars stuff just because I love Star Wars, but then I find an author that writes a bunch of Star Wars, and I'm like, man, all their stuff is really good. I look up the other stuff,
Right.
Which is why I've read nearly everything Timothy Zahn's ever written, but then Stover was one of the same, so I looked up his stuff, and I remember getting his, I think I got that first book, Heroes Die. And I started reading, like, you can just look at the first couple of pages. I'm like, oh, this is very much like rated R. Yeah, maybe rated X. I don't know. I wasn't expecting that.
I can't imagine the Star Wars books are like that.
No, I mean, they are on the, like, lean toward the darker stuff more, for sure. But they're definitely not, like, explicit like that. But it's like, oh, I can see why he's writing, like, that kind of edgier stuff.
Yeah.
maybe that's why he hasn't been writing as much as Timothy Zahn does, that captures more of, like, the family-friendly tone that they're probably going for the most part. I always thought his books were really successful. I mean, online, nearly everyone talks about the Revenge of the Sith novelization as, like, the gold standard.
Yeah, I read that one.
For movie novelizations, just...
It was good.
And nearly everyone comes out like, that was alright, but that wasn't no Revenge of the Sith. But I can, like, read the opening, like... I don't even know, it's not the prologue, really. It's just, like... This is, like, the opening crawl for the book. It's, like, a few pages. And I get to the end of it, and I get chills every time, because his prose is so good.
High praise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Zahn, he's one of the top ones. Stover's one of the top ones. Not nearly as much outside of Star Wars, but Aaron Alston was one of the best Star Wars authors. I've read a couple of his other stuff, but it didn't grab me nearly as much. But his Star Wars stuff, especially the Wraith Squadron books,
Yeah, I've heard you talk about those.
hilarious stuff. Like, has one of the best, like, running gags I've ever read in a book.
Yeah, that seems like a hard thing to do in a book.
I don't... It's one of those things that, like, I feel like shouldn't work. And when it first comes up in the book, it's like, that's funny. And it doesn't feel like it's ever going to be mentioned again. And then it comes up a couple more times in that book. You're like, okay, it's still funny. And then, like, 2 books later, it's still coming up. And it's just getting more and more absurd. And by the time it pays off, like, 100%, you just can't believe where it started. It's just, like, literally just a joke. And then now it's like, what is this turned into? And why am I sitting there laughing at this, stupid tie-in fiction about a bunch of X-Wing pilots that I've never heard of in the movies?
Are they your favorite X-Wing pilots now?
Oh, probably. And the thing is, not only are they really funny, but I think they're really funny, and it really works like that because he also manages to make it tragic.
Well, okay.
Because they're the only characters in those books that are like from the movies is Wedge Antilles, who is in all three of the original trilogy, for like a scene and a half, and it's like 2 lines every movie. And most people have never heard of him.
Yeah.
He's just one of the random pilots that just happens to be in all 3 movies. So he's one of the main characters, and then Han Solo's in like the 2nd and 3rd book a little bit, but he's definitely not like a main character. Everyone else is pretty much original characters, and so they can die.
Yeah.
And he's not afraid to like, oh yeah, make you like this person, make you like them. They're gonna die horribly, and then everyone's gonna be traumatized from this.
Of course.
But then they do something really funny, and it's like the juxtaposition is beautiful and effective for whatever reason. Like they have a scene that just rips your gut out, and then a few chapters later, I have something really heartwarming and funny. It's like, oh, what? How dare you put me on this bungee jump of terrible emotions? And makes you attached to them. And I don't know if any other of the Star Wars authors managed to do that quite as well, as far as like that specific like tightrope going back and forth between the death and absurd comedy that definitely pops up. I mean, one of the books has a dancing pig man in it.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect death to come after that.
But he's also like a math genius. But throughout that whole book, he's been traumatized from one of his friends dying in the war that just happened. And it's like, how does this work? He's literally like ballet dancing right now. In this whole book, he's been just like traumatized. I don't understand. I don't understand, but it's beautiful and I love it.
Only in Star Wars.
Apparently. It's the kind of thing I would have expected maybe out of the Lord Miller version of Solo, if he had been allowed to make that.
Right.
It's the kind of thing that wouldn't feel out of place in like the Lego movies or Into the Spider-Verse.
Right. Yeah.
It's like,
I don't think Ron Howard could handle that.
No, he's much more straightforward than that. It's the kind of thing, like, man, I think they could do a good adaptation of this if they ever, for some reason, decided to do that. That'd be a very weird decision on Disney's part, but
Would be,
yeah, they could nail that kind of humor.
Maybe they should adapt one of the books, though.
That's the dream.
I guess they're not into that.
No, I really hope that, or the dream for me at least, and not even like, I don't even think it's an unreasonable dream, would be like something what like DC does with their animated movies. Because they come up with like 3 or 4 of those things a year, and they're not like super high budget or anything, and not very many of them are like spectacular. They're all just fine for the most part. But they're just adapting all these different comic stories they've had over the years. A lot of famous ones, a lot of big ones, like just giving them exposure and like a visual medium for people that don't like comic books. I'd love to see them start doing that with some of the old books, giving them a visual interpretation. I don't think that's unreasonable, but it seems like that may be an unreasonable request.
Yeah, it might be. Disney probably doesn't know what they're doing fully, so.
No, they're too busy making Star Wars land.
Yeah. That looks pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. It does look awesome. But it's also a place I'm only going to be able to go to, like, a few times probably because of how expensive it's going to be.
Right.
Except for my inside man over there.
Oh, yeah. At least you got him.
Yeah, I've got him. He's actually going to be working in it, so.
Oh, yeah, I heard that. I'm sure he's stoked about that.
Oh, unbelievably stoked. Living the dream. Living in a piece of Star Wars, as it were.
It's as close as you can get to Star Wars on Earth.
Yep. Until they work out how to, like, hop dimensions or something.
Well, they'll do that eventually. If there's money in it, Disney will figure it out.
Yeah, they'll turn it into entertainment, like in the Kane books.
Yeah, just like that.
Send actors over into the other world and record stuff. It's a fascinating concept.
Maybe it won't get as bloody.
I would hope so.
It would. Eventually.
Yeah, I think it's probably more realistic than it would.
And that could be family friendly for like a year and then just evolve.
That's be heavily censored.
Yeah.
Terrible, terrible thought. Us sending people into Star Wars world to steal stuff from them.
We would do it though.
Mm-hmm. Oh, maybe that's how George Lucas did it to begin with.
Could be.
I mean, it is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah. We just don't know. Maybe you can meet George Lucas and ask him.
Maybe. Well, meeting George Lucas, I don't even know if I'd really want to, honestly.
You'd rather
Like, it'd be cool, no doubt, but, like, I mean, I have met Timothy Zahn a couple times.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Cool.
I think that's way more interesting than me. I'd rather have a sit-down chat with him than George Lucas, honestly. And maybe I changed my mind after, like, talking to him. I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe it'd be a really interesting conversation. But, Lucas seems kind of, done with it.
Yeah, he does. I don't really know how he's spending his time now.
Yeah, I don't either. I haven't heard anything, like, recently. I think he was, like, the last thing I heard about what he was doing was, like, visiting the set of the new Star Wars TV show. It's like, well, he's still, like, at least, like, paying attention to what's going on. Like, oh, just pop in, say hi, take some pictures, move along. Don't have to say you're welcome.
He just doesn't want to direct anymore.
Yeah.
Which is probably for the best.
Yeah.
At least in Star Wars. He could do something else, maybe.
Did he? I honestly don't know, because I didn't even see it. That animated movie Strange Magic.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
I can't remember if he directed that or if he just produced that. Because that was something that he was involved with heavily somehow. But I don't remember the exact context. I want to say he directed it, but
He might have.
I don't remember. Remember, it looked very strange. That's really all I remember about that. I remember the trailers were coming out, like, from George Lucas. Oh. So this is what he's doing now.
I don't know how well that did.
Yeah, I don't remember anything about it when it came out. If it did well, or... I remember it having, like, pop music in it. I don't remember if it was, like, a musical, if it just had music in it. Like, Baby Driver, or...
Yeah.
I don't think it was like that at all, but...
Probably not.
I probably should, like, seek that out.
Probably so.
Watch it, just
It might be.
as a curiosity, if nothing else.
Have you seen any of his other stuff besides Star Wars?
Honestly, I don't think I have.
Because he had. Is that a rule?
Yeah, I've got American Graffiti, but I've never watched it. I bought it a while back,
Maybe.
found it on the cheap, but I've been meaning to.
Maybe that's how you should spend your weekend.
Maybe. I mean, I ran out of episodes of Dragon Prince to watch. Oh, that's good stuff.